Oh, you found it. Oh, my journal, my drawings.
These pages are old, Mom.
Well, careful.
This is all from your hero days?
And before. I was just a strong-shouldered farm girl once. I had long black hair.
Sure, Mom, but what about when...
When the Gorgons came?
Yeah, and you saved the town.
Well, we fought the Gorgons together. Your father was there. We were kids. He was shy, bookish, cute, of course. But that day, he did magic. So I was a warrior. Folks called him a mystic. We chased those stone-eyed Gorgons past the hills to places where trees walk, where the ruins of other yonderings lie like buried bones, and met a moth-winged man who kept moonlight under his hat.
And you met Holden?
Oh yeah, some hunter's kid. Your father liked him, and that made 3 of us.
Then you were called heroes.
Maybe. But it's strange. The world changes. There's always some new threat. And heroes can't stay the same either. You make choices. You bargain with wild spirits. Fall for one of your friends, then find reasons to argue with the other. Well, it all works out somehow. Except, no, not everyone makes it.
Dad said I wouldn't be here without that man's sacrifice.
You'll be safe out there, won't you?
You could always come with me, show me how things are done.
I know you say that, but... Well, where'd my old sword get to?
Process safety engineering is one of the most important things we teach chemical engineering students. It takes the fundamental knowledge they learn and applies it to situations that can have profound implications: social, ethical, environmental, financial, pretty much everything. The challenge is, it's hard to teach authentically. You can give students problems to work through, but you can't put them in a chemical process or plant, make things go wrong, and see how they respond. So how do we do this in a way that's more engaging than just doing problems? That gives students a better sense of what process safety decisions might look like in context, that allows for their choices to develop narratively. Our answer to that was a game, a platform where students could interact with virtual characters, but still get to make authentic process safety decisions in a safe environment. We wanted to give them a way to reflect on their decision-making processes, make them aware of the connections between process safety and ethics, and hopefully develop skills that will serve them in the future. So me and my colleagues, Dan Anastasio at Rose-Hulman, Cheryl Bodnar at Rowan University, and Matt Cooper at NC State University worked with the game developer, Filament Games, to develop Contents Under Pressure, which Matt's going to show you now.
In Contents Under Pressure, the player is placed in the virtual environment of a chemical production facility where they work as an engineering manager. Throughout each day of gameplay, players are faced with choices posed by different characters. For instance, here we see one of your employees asking you a question. Let's look at how a player makes the decision. Here we can see there are 2 options. Let's hover over the first one. As we hover over it, we can see various meters flashing up top. The first one on the left that looks like a clock shows the amount of time the task will take. The next to the right shows whether the decision will affect process safety. The next to the right whether the decision will affect your coworkers' perception of you. And the last whether the decision will impact your facility's productivity. Flashing only indicates that a decision will change that meter up or down, but does not make clear which way it will go. Let's view the other option. You can see the feedback from the meters change. Sorry, Victor, but safety is important. Let's click this first one.
I think that one of the things that the simulation does very well is that it kind of just prepares you to think in those types of like sequential orders, kind of has you thinking ahead instead of just thinking in the moment.
I think that the characters were realistic because each one of them had their own personality, and that's what happens in real life.
I would think that one of the things that I did not like was that in some cases they were a little bit whiny. They would just be like, oh no, it's warm outside, I don't feel like being at work. And it kind of just has you thinking like, well, this is kind of just your job, so.
My daughter in the game called me and she wanted me to be home while the storm was happening. And That was difficult because in real life, it's like I know that I will want to be with my family and not at work.
iPlan is an educational game that lets players explore complex land use issues in their own communities. Players choose a location using a Google Maps interface, and iPlan creates a land use map using real geographic data. Based on the environmental and socioeconomic issues selected, iPlan constructs an interactive map that lets players see how much changes in land use affect those issues. For example, restoring wetlands in former industrial areas can lower greenhouse gas emissions and pollution, but it also decreases jobs. And changing from high-density apartments to single-family homes reduces housing availability, but expands habitats for birds. Because land use planning is a civic process, players submit proposed changes to simulated community stakeholders for feedback. Stakeholders have different and sometimes conflicting interests, so players are challenged to develop plans that satisfy as many people as possible. To determine how much change each stakeholder wants, players submit different proposals to identify more precise targets for community improvement. Players submit a final proposal when they think they have addressed as many stakeholder concerns as possible. iPlan brings real-world planning practices to mobile devices, allowing players to solve complex land use problems in their own neighborhoods or anywhere in the contiguous United States.
Well met, Prince Rowan.
Wonderful.
Oh, my friend!
So be it. Rowan. Long live the High King!
Blackhaven Hall, the historic home of founding father Thomas Harwood and the Harwood dynasty of Virginia. This magnificent home was burned by the British during the American Revolution, and its ruins stood for decades as a symbol of their sacrifice. But Blackhaven continued to fall into neglect and was in danger of being forgotten forever. Until now. At Blackhaven Hall, yesterday is tomorrow. With a state-of-the-art glass and steel reconstruction, a cornerstone of our patriotic history is now great again. Come and rediscover your heritage with...
Ugh, I cannot listen to this all day.
Good morning. Thanks for calling Blackhaven Hall. This is Kendra speaking.
The Harwoods and their servants.
Servants, huh? I'm researching something and it could be really big. I love this woman. What the About to become Blackhaven's worst intern of all time.
the privilege of opening the first trial in history for crimes against the peace of the world imposes a grave responsibility. The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored because it cannot survive their being repeated. To meet the greatest menace of our times, aggressive war. The common sense of mankind demands that law shall not stop with the punishment of petty crimes by little people. It must also reach men who possess themselves of great power and make deliberate and concerted use of it to set in motion evils which leave no home in the world untouched. It is a cause of that magnitude that the United Nations will lay before your honors. What makes this inquest significant is that these prisoners represent sinister influences that will lurk in the world long after their bodies have returned to dust.
Gaika Ogala to Niuchi at Noa Taha Newega at Noa Yuwenot.
Long before there was any land here, there were creatures that lived in Oniganas, and the birds that flew above it. Now you have heard the story of Yojidas and how we came to live on Turtle Island. This is why we de Tuano Heladu Sunkwai Disu and live with Gulio.
Bye.